Yo.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Risotto is a dish that I have not at all been familiar with previously and something that I have not really come across naturally. However, recent curiosity has led me to try making this dish, and with copious amounts of luck, the dish did not turn out a complete disaster and the results were more than just pleasing. The thing that hit me the most was the flavor of the dish, as well as the comfort that a hot bowl of risotto can provide you with. The reason why I said that my dish turned out the way it did with an insurmountable amount of luck is that risotto is made using quite a specific method, which I was completely unfamiliar with. However, we will explore that in this video. So first things first, why is risotto so flavorful? Well, essentially the dish is made up of a type of rice that soaks up very flavorful liquids such as stocks, wines, etc. until it is finished cooking and you have obtained your desired consistency and texture. Also, the risotto is cooked in an open pan, which allows for liquid to escape, therefore concentrating the flavors. What makes risotto different from other types of rice is that, unlike with other rice where you leave it to boil until it's soft, not daring to stir or touch it, risotto is made by continuously stirring and touching it, adding liquid as it is absorbed. We avoid stirring normal rice as this activates starch, causing our rice to turn into a mushy mess. Whilst the exact opposite applies with risotto. We purposefully continuously stir our risotto specifically to activate the starch. And as the starch dissolves, it creates a thick, creamy and beautiful texture, binding the rice together and brilliantly infusing them with the rest of the ingredients in our dish. So this is quite a labor intensive dish, but trust me, it is worth it. The crux of making a risotto is that you have to continuously stir the rice whilst adding your chosen liquid a little at a time. Too much liquid at once will essentially transform your dish into a fancy cooked rice rather than risotto. Only add about half a cup of liquid at a time and only add liquid again if all of the water you have previously added has been absorbed and there's no liquid left in the pan. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Never, not once, for any reason whatsoever humanly thinkable or possible, no matter what, stop stirring. So what liquid do we then use in risotto? Well, this depends on what type of risotto you are going for. And it depends on the ingredients that you are going to use. For example, the first risotto I made was a mushroom risotto and I had to reconstitute dry mushrooms. Reconstituting dry mushrooms is basically when you add water to dried mushrooms in order to be able to use them again. This created kind of a mushroom broth, which I then used as my liquid to make the risotto with. This principle then applies with any ingredients that you use in your risotto. If the ingredients produce any liquid in the preparation process, use this liquid as the cooking liquid that you add to your risotto. Another example could be if you are making a seafood risotto using clams. Use the water you used for boiling your clams as part of the cooking liquids. If your ingredients do not produce any cooking liquids, use broth, wine, water, or a combination of them all. It is, however, very important to note that the flavor in your risotto will intensify as the liquids cook and evaporate, because the evaporation causes the flavor to become more concentrated. Therefore, you should be careful in adding too much broth or wine when making your risotto, as your dish could become way too sharp and concentrated. I made this mistake in making another type of risotto where I added a heavily concentrated chicken stock, and the flavor just plainly became too intense. But this is something that you will have to play around with, and I think it's a bit of a learning curve, but you will quickly find your sweet spot. A way to curb the flavors becoming too intense is to taste your risotto. If you are satisfied with the flavor, rather add water for the remainder of the cooking time until your risotto is done, instead of the stock. I personally prefer not to use more stock than a recipe suggests, and if your risotto is not fully cooked yet by the time that your stock is finished, just add more water for the remainder of the cooking time. But again, this is something you can play around with and not something you really need a recipe for, just as long as you add a cooking liquid until your risotto is done. So let's jump right into it. For the risotto today, I will be showing you one of the easiest ways to make this dish, but one that almost brought tears to my eyes. For this dish, we will be needing the following. 1 finely chopped shallot, or I don't know really how to say that. 2 tablespoons of butter, about 600 milliliters of beef or chicken stock, any neutral oil, 220 grams of risotto rice. I will be going with arborio. Grated parmesan, I go with about a cup. And then the kicker, some truffles if you have access to them. So firstly, we will start by putting our stock in some sort of pot or saucepan and bring it to a gentle simmer. Once the stock has reached a simmer, we will add our oil and 1 tablespoon of butter to the pan in which we will be making the risotto. Bring the pan to a medium-high heat And once the butter has melted, we will add the onions. Saute the onions until they are translucent. So as mentioned, when the starch in the rice is activated, it binds with the flavor or flavor base of our dish. So therefore it's important to apply the same principles that I have introduced with my meat sauce video, and that is to have a flavor base from which we build the rest of our dish. This is what we achieve by sauteing our onions in the butter until it is translucent before adding the risotto rice. Once your onions are translucent, we will be adding the risotto rice to the pan, and then make sure that all of the rice gets coated in the flavor. When this is done, we will start adding our stock to the dish, half a cup at a time, and remember, don't stop stirring. Continuously stir the rice until all of the water has been absorbed, as you can see here. Then only do you add the next half a cup of stock. And remember, never add too much liquid at once. And don't stop stirring. Continue adding the stock half a cup at a time until either the risotto is done or the stock is finished. Once your stock is finished, you can add half a cup of water until the risotto is finished cooking. I think the doneness of your risotto is based on personal taste and whether you would like the center of your risotto to still be crunchy or just have a nice chew to it. I do, however, think that it should never be cooked until it is mushy, and therefore it is important to remove it from the heat before it reaches that stage. What I do is I start tasting the risotto once the consistency starts becoming thick, as you can see here. I taste it for a couple of reasons. To determine if I should switch over from stock to water, to determine whether it needs salt, and how long it still needs to cook. Remember not to add too much salt, as your risotto will still reduce or more and intensify in taste, which could also possibly cause your dish to become overly salty. Therefore, rather add a bit more salt and then add at the end if it is still needed. And also try to determine how long your risotto still needs to cook by judging how hard the rice still is. Should it still be crunchy instead of chewy, you might still have some time before your risotto is complete, and you can easily add another half of a cup of water or stock and stir. I have tasted the risotto again, and I believe that my risotto basically has like a minute left before it reaches the texture I want. I will therefore add one last tiny splash of water to finish off cooking the risotto. As your dish is nearing completion, it is important to adjust the amount of liquid you add. Adding too much water at or near the end could result in your risotto to become overcooked and mushy. For this reason, I only add one more splash if my dish is almost done, and then stir it until the liquid has been absorbed and the risotto has reached the perfect consistency. Then just before removing the risotto from the heat, I add the Parmesan and 1 tablespoon of butter. And then mix it until the Parmesan and butter has melted and all of the risotto has been coated. Just look at that. Comfort in a plate. That's it for this video, guys. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this video, and I will see you here next time.